yeah, I just wanted to
Okay.
let you know.
It's going to be going ahead and begin with the meeting. I'm going to ask Commissioner Thomas if he will lead us with an invocation and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All please stand.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We just acknowledge you as our Lord and Savior. We're just so thankful to be here and just ask you to just be present with us tonight. Just allow us to do our county's business. Just guide our hearts, guide our minds in all things we do, all things we say. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or changes to the...
Yes, I have one
yes.
add-on item
All right, we'll have one on item up underneath the...
under general business.
General business.
Or under my item, whichever one. That's right.
I'll just put it underneath yours. How about
Okay.
that?
Okay.
Keep the general clean.
All right. I have at the end. I have a item that I had listed for discussion, but I'm gonna pull that item.
Mr. Chairman, my item for discussion has also been resolved.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other add-ons or changes? If not, can we get a motion
Motion to
to
approve the agenda. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, citizens to be heard. Paige, do we have any citizens to be heard or not? If there's any more, okay, so do we have any more citizens to be heard for the first part? Okay, our first citizen.
It seems like there may be people locked out.
Okay.
Doors over there.
Well, while we getting the door, I'll wait for him to come in.
I know Mr. Lambu knows where the doors are.
Okay, I'm going to ask Chris Russell to come on up. Yeah. Mr. Lambu, we're doing the citizens to be heard section now. If you're intending on speaking in the first section, please fill out a speaker card.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Chris Russell, 92 Pimlico. I attended the DOT meeting last Thursday on the intersection change down there and discussing the project with the engineer that was there. We had a long discussion about what was forthcoming in the stages and how long it would take. Long story short, the high school and the safety concerns there with the buses and the traffic with the large event traffic in the morning and whatnot came up. He advised that when the final project was done, the red light would be there, and that would help kind of alleviate some of the traffic issues there, traffic safety issues. My question to him was, well, if you're going to do that anyway and you realize that that's an issue now, why can't we get a red light there now? He responded that if the board would send a request to the DOT District Secretary, Tommy Barfield, he could see him possibly getting behind that. It made sense to have a red light there now because we have issues there now with the kids and with the buses, and you know how it is to get out of a football game there. I'm not proposing a red light that sits there all day long, red, but you know, obviously they're in the high peak areas. Come on. Sheriff Krill was at the meeting, and I invited him over to the conversation after discussing and explaining it. He said he was on board. He'd be happy to write a letter as well. There was a couple commissioners there as well, brought them over one by one as well, and it seemed like everybody was kind of on the board. But what I'd like to know is if you could please, or I'd like to request, maybe y'all could pass a resolution to send the DOT Secretary, District Secretary, Mr. Barfield, a request asking to have a red light put in there now. If it's forthcoming and the need is there and they've looked at it and they say the need's there, why not go ahead and do it now instead of waiting to have everything else done that may be forthcoming later on? So, looks like it makes sense to me. I think our kids deserve it. I think our citizens deserve it. I don't think it's that big a thing to ask. I would say, once again, I'm not proposing a red light that sits there red all day long. Maybe the sheriff could control that or something like that. But definitely worth looking at it. Seems like DOT was very receptive of the idea. At least the engineer, the DOT engineer, was there speaking with us on it. So hopefully y'all can do that. If you have any questions, I'll be here afterwards. I know you can't take them now, but thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mike Morgan.
Mike Morgan, 3140 Coastal Highway, Crawfordville, Florida. I just wanted to talk with you guys real quick before the DOT people done their presentation to voice some of my concerns about it. They've been planning this change since 1996, I guess, is when they showed us the first plat, and then it's been changed now. But anyway, my concerns are, I've got real concerns with the way they're looking at doing the end of the, or the beginning of the intersection there with the school. I don't think it's a bad idea to siphon off that traffic from the school, from the traffic on 319 and 98. I couldn't believe when I looked at the plat. I mean, it's just so backwards to me. And I've been on that intersection for almost 25 years. I mean, I've watched them redo it 3 times. So when they show you their presentation and that, I would like for you guys to maybe ask them how they come about butting it off right in front of the school. I mean, I know the history of it. I knew everybody who's owned that property except for till Mr. Moore bought it. But I think it's a great idea to turn it right there and go to the school, or, you know, not the 319. I still think 319 should be right down to right there close to my shop, and I think they need to definitely finish repairing the intersection. They're showing it stopping right in front of my shop instead of going to the end of it and finishing getting on Jack Crum Road is a death trap right there. I mean, I was told through all the years that, you know, when they finally did this, they'd be getting with you, you'd hear about it, you know, this and that. I never heard a thing, and I contacted Chipley a couple times about being notified when the meetings come up, and I was never notified. I was told that it wasn't going to affect my property when I called about the meetings. So anyways, I just wanted to voice my concerns before they showed it to you, so I could see if, you know, you could ask the questions that I'm concerned about. Because that traffic butting into the school, if they put that morning traffic there in a school zone that's got to slow down anyway, trying to get to 319 to go to town every morning, I can't, you know, I don't care how smart these folks are. Somebody needs to sit there and watch it like I have. And if they bring that traffic from Tallahassee going to the coast and put it there during a football game on a Saturday night, I mean, you're going to have 10 times the problem you got now. I just don't think it was thought out right. I mean, buying the property was probably a good idea, but it seemed like they catered to the fact they bought the property with the way they designed the road. And to me, it's just totally flawed. I mean, you really need to take a look at that end of it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve Cushman.
Steve Cushman, 233 Clark, Panacea. I just want to talk a minute about passion and emotion, because there's been a lot of passion behind several of the issues here lately, and there's been a lot of emotion. You know, I'm very passionate about environmental protection and making sure that our natural resources are used responsibly so that they're sustainable for our children's children and on down the road. And many of you know that I'm involved in the aquaculture program. I teach for TCC, and we're on our way. We finally got approval of our leases last week, and we're on our way. Matter of fact, we're 30 days from today. We'll be going to market with the first oysters that were grown in aquaculture here in this county. So I'm passionate about that, but I'm not passionate to the point where I'm going to lie about things or burn somebody's boat down because I don't like them. And that's where emotion comes in. You know, a lot of us are very emotionally attached to our families. And when it comes to our children, there's things we may do that aren't rationally thought out when we do it just because it's an emotional decision. So my point is I think this board erred a few weeks back when it made the decision to put the ballot or the petition on the ballot in November for the wetlands. I signed one of those petitions along with 6,000 other citizens in this county, and the petition I signed had a specific wording on it, and that was changed right before you guys voted on it to put it on there, and I know a couple of you didn't vote on it for that reason. I just don't think this county has the authority to change a petition. Obviously, I'm running for county commissioner in District 4, I don't think Randy would appreciate the fact if I just all of a sudden went and changed mine to District 2 because there's less people running in that race.
Oh, he would like that.
But the point is, you know, we all signed that petition. That's what we agreed to put on the ballot, and I would like to see it put on the ballot. So I'd urge all of you to think about that and get that back on the ballot as it was written. Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Stephen Fultz.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Steve Fultz, and for total disclosure, I am too a candidate running against Mr. Moore in District 4. I live at 35 Montecoupe Circle, Panacea, Florida. I'd like to thank Commissioner Merritt for bringing forward what I thought was a great idea at the last meeting. That was to make the effective date of any wetlands ordinance repeal the day after the referendum. This would significantly reduce the liability to Wakulla County in the event the referendum was to pass. This logical solution was summarily met with a motion and then a second by Mr. Moore to move forward with an immediate repeal against the advice of both county staff and the county attorney. I'd like to say that again. Against the advice of both the staff and the county attorney. I would urge you strongly to please reconsider Commissioner Merritt's suggestion at the upcoming public hearing. It's simply common sense that will help protect our county in the event the referendum passes. Better yet, do the really right thing. Don't put effort and taxpayer money to repeal the wetlands ordinance until after the people have spoken in November. That clearly makes the most sense and is in the best interest of our citizens and our county. Now on to the 3/1998 rerouting in front of our high school. I agree with what's previously been said. Clearly, improving safety in front of our high school is a noble and needed goal. But the plans I've seen simply don't make any sense whatsoever. There are significant unintended consequences to closing the shortest path northbound and rerouting all of those cars to make a left-hand turn directly in front of our high school. Please take the time, find an alternate solution that makes sense for the citizens of Wakulla County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are all the citizens to be heard that I have turned in. Our next is going to be, we're going to move on into our public hearing. We have a public hearing for request board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance amending section 8.009 of code relating to code enforcement violations and that present a serious threat to public health, safety, and welfare.
Go ahead and make that motion since you just read the whole thing, Richard.
All right.
Second.
Saved me a lot of time.
That was a second.
So we have a motion made and second. I don't have any citizens to speak on this. Do we have any commissioners to speak on it? Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Outside.
The awards and presentations. Our first is going to be Miss April Williams is going to be coming up and giving a presentation on, well, actually, regarding Highway 319 and the project.
And April, your presentation covers all the way from the high school, all the way to the county line. You're not here to talk just about the high school intersection, right?
I do want to clarify that for the audience and for the commissioners. The environmental reevaluation did not include that segment from 98 to Alaska Way because that project was already in design and no other segment of this is currently under design. So that environmental reevaluation is processing kind of in parallel to this project. So I'm not the project manager for that, nor are my consultants who are here. So with that, I just want you to know I'm not really prepared to answer questions. I can take your concerns back, but I wanted to make that clear.
You're not here. In other words, you're not here to. Part of your presentation does not include that intersection.
It does not.
Okay.
We have it because it was included in the original 1996 PD&E, so we have to include that in the limits of our reevaluation, but we are not a party to that design, nor the environmental study on that. I just want to clarify that going into. Okay, so with that, I'm April Williams, And the reason I'm here today is we have our public alternatives meeting for the corridor coming up, and I wanted to give you guys a briefing, let you know where we've been and where we are and what we need next from you. So with that, just a quick reminder, it does start, the original study started down at State Road 30, US 98 in Wakulla County. It went all the way north to the south of the 4 Points intersection in Leon County, north of Capitol Circle. Segments north of Rivers Road to the 4 Points intersection, as you know, has already been constructed and 4 lanes. The original environmental document was a Type 2 categorical exclusion, and we feel pretty confident that Federal Highway is going to let us move with that, and what that means is it's the least complicated of the environmental documents. There are several levels, and that ensures that we can move forward with this project quickly. For you guys, you know that US 319 is a hurricane evacuation route, and it's presently not on the strategic intermodal system, the SIS, but it is the department's goal to maintain eligibility to be on the SIS should that opportunity become available.
And that becomes very important later in a weird way. You'll see why.
So for our study, we divided it into 3 focus areas, beginning down at US 98 to the intersection of County Road 61 here in Crawfordville. And then the second segment picks up at County Road 61 and goes to the Leon County line. And then the third segment picks up at the county line and goes to the beginning of the 4 lanes just south of Rivers Road in Leon County. For our part that we're looking at, it's about 20 miles. You all know why we feel we need to widen 319, improve mobility and traffic congestion, especially here through Crawfordville and as all the traffic merges in and out. Not only congestion, but circulation, pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, and just general public safety. And this study is an update of the old study. I want to make that clear, too, that we're not going out with a new study. We're looking at earlier alternatives that were looked at back in the 90s. So this is really how the project is being segmented. You'll see segment 1 is the one that you guys have been discussing previously, and that's from State Road 30 to Alaska Way. We have 2 alternate alignments throughout the project. Alternate 1 tends to follow the existing alignment, which shifts left and right to accommodate the typical section and trying to miss some wetlands and some other things like that. Alternative 2 is similar to Alternative 1, except it includes a one-way pair through Crawfordville, which I'll show in just a second. So I'm just going to go through these segments quickly, but please stop me if you have questions. Segment 1 is the one that's already being discussed. As you know, right-of-way is funded for 14, 15, 16. Design is underway, and they are currently at 90%. Segment 2 picks up north of Alaska Way to Lost Creek Bridge, and those plans are at 30% put on the shelf in 2007. For this section of the project, an urban typical section is being proposed. You can see what that looks like. That consists of 2 12-foot lanes in each direction, bike lane and sidewalk, design speed of 45 miles per hour. Yes, sir.
So when you're talking about Section 1 from US 98 to Alaska Way,
Yes, sir.
that is not what your project you're of?
No, that's in design, so it's in a later phase than the segments as they go farther north.
That's more on
Okay.
later.
Okay. This is segment 3, and alternate 1, as I was mentioning to you, there's an alternate 2 within Crawfordville. This is the urban typical section, so this is what it would look like if you 4-laned through Crawfordville. We're proposing a design speed of 45 miles per hour, which is critical to maintaining eligibility for the SIS. You get 2 12-foot lanes in each direction, a 4-foot bike lane, and a 6-foot sidewalk in each direction.
April, let me address that SIS, which is a strategic intermodal system. Basically, DOT is trying to get us in that to get federal funding
Yes.
to pay for this project. Because there was a lot of questions, and Louis asked me several times, well, why do we have it 45 miles an hour through Crawfordville? And you have to have it 45.
Actually, I think design speed is 50, but we posted it at 45.
And we're going to work on that, of course, because I don't think everybody wants that. But as it stands right now, to get on that strategic intermodal, we can't post lower than 45.
And it's kind of chicken before the egg. I mean, how do you get funding for this, being on the SIS? How do you be on the SIS? You meet SIS criteria. So I think Commissioner Merritt this morning described it as a catch-22, and it is. And we have ongoing coordination planned. I mean, this isn't a final deal. I don't want anybody to think that. But this is what we are facing as a department and for you guys as a community. And I just want you guys to be aware of that. Did you have any
So,
questions?
yeah, when we're traveling on 19, coming north from South Florida or Central Florida. We go through towns and the speed limit drops to lower than 45. Those are evacuation routes, I take it.
This is not necessarily associated with an evacuation route. And I don't know specifically if the road you're speaking of is on the strategic intermodal system. This is generally geared towards mobility for freight, general mobility for traffic. So, you know, I'm sorry I can't speak to that because I don't know if the roadway you're mentioning is. And I understand what your point is, I certainly do. But I don't know that that's on the CIS.
The thing about a CIS is it's theoretically supposed to connect like an airport to a port, right? Or I don't know some other examples, but you know,
it's
a
specifically
railroad to an airport, a railroad to a
logging
port.
trucks or something from a port to an airport, a seaport, something like that. It's more of a mobility goal.
And that's why we're having such a hard time getting 319 on that list, which would make us eligible for a lot more funding, which is, I believe, how they got Capital Circle funded because of the airport and because it was on the strategic intermodal system.
Right. That opens up a new pot of funding for the department.
Big pot of funding. We're going to work on that, Howard.
We are. So this is alternate one within the town of Crawfordville. This is option one within alternate one. This is the Crawfordville Town Plan. We are looking at this at the request of your planning department. Limits are from Harvey Mill Road to Wakulla Aaron Road. There are a couple of issues with this specifically. Number one is the 14-foot median width does not meet DOT criteria. Second, with a 45 mile per hour speed, we're not completely comfortable with on-street parking. We feel like that could create a conflict with somebody trying to back out with somebody going 45, 50 miles an hour. Okay.
Is that basically a 100-foot right-of-way?
No.
I don't see what the number is, but the right-of-way is the third issue. Worried about impacts to your existing businesses with the amount of right-of-way. And I have a slide that will show you the right-of-way with this compared to the department's 4-lane typical. It's coming. So this is the urban typical section that the department is proposing through Crawfordville. You can see it's a wider median, 19.5. That's minimum to meet DOT standard. And you can see you get your bike lanes and sidewalk. There they are, side by side. You can see the difference in the right-of-way that would be required for each of them. And this is part of the coordination that is ongoing. I just want you guys to see what we're up against. Okay, this is alternate 2 within the town of Crawfordville, and this is the one-way pair. And this would run from north of Harvey Mill Road to north of Azalea Drive, bypassing your parks. And then we would switch to the urban typical section outside of those limits. This is an aerial view. You can kind of get an up-close view of what it's going to look like should it be built. Northbound traffic would use existing Crawfordville Highway, and southbound would come along Ocklawackney. And on the bottom you can kind of see a close-up. There are some conflicts with this, of course, being First Baptist Church, and as I understand there's a Dollar General under construction that would be impacted. We were asked to look at this. It was part of the original study. So that's why we're bringing it forward as an alternative. That's why it's so important that we get public feedback at the upcoming alternatives meeting, because we need to know what the town wants.
Is everyone clear on where that one-way pair is going, just in case somebody asks you? Now, what she just said is, because I asked April at the CRTPA, how are y'all going to decide what to do this? And her answer was public input. So they're going to base their whole decision on whether or not to do a one-way pair or do a 4-lane section based on public input. So,
well, I want to ask, I was looking at this map earlier, and say in the area like the First Baptist Church and the other, where your proposed road would actually be literally going behind it through where their life center is now.
Right.
Okay, if that was decided and they had to move it, who would pay for it? I mean, who would pay to if you were intending to bring the road through and there was a conflict like that, and you had to move something, who's going to pay for it?
Just like any private property owner, the department would negotiate all of that through the right-of-way office, and they do fair market value, and they'll consider the cost to rebuild, cost to relocate, and all of that. And I will add, what Commissioner Merritt is saying is true. DOT can recommend either one depending on public input, but the final decision always rests with Federal Highway. I want to make that clear. We can recommend, but Federal Highway makes that call.
Would it do any good, April, for this board to have a preference, or is that just gonna put more stick in the mud?
The board can make a preference, but really, you know, when we put out those comment forms to the public, you know, we have to get a response from them as well.
And that becomes federal highway because it's a U.S. highway, U.S. 319 being a federal.
Because the whole PD&E, the project development, and is what's called the NEPA process. It's the National Environmental Policy Act, and Federal Highway is charged with ensuring that the Department of Transportation follows that process. It is intended to be objective, is intended to be fair, and that's why, because Federal Highway wants to make sure we follow that process. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it is possible that the public input could say that they didn't want the one-way pair, but then in the end, Federal Highway could decide to do the one-way pair, and that's what it would be?
No, I don't think that Federal Highway would go against the public. I will say for this project, we've looked at environmental impacts, and they're roughly equivalent for the 4-lane and the one-way pair. So really, the wild card here is public input.
What kind of time frame would you see as, this occurring?
Meaning
Period of time?
construction?
Yeah.
We don't have any funds identified. That all goes back to SIS eligibility. And when can we get 319 designated as a SIS facility? Then when do those capacity dollars, or when are those capacity dollars opened up? Right now, it's not in the 5-year work program.
So I have another question then.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm hearing you say that the public input is important,
It is.
but then I'm also heard you say that the segment that you're not the project manager of is already in the design phase, and I was not aware of public opportunity to input and all the rest. So, understanding that you're not the project manager on that, that would be one of my questions that I would like you to bring back to the other project manager and whoever to find out how that happened without public input.
Okay.
Right.
And I talked to Sandra. Miss Sandra Lamb is the project manager for that, for the department, on the way down here, and she is working through trying to get you guys a response. So I don't think the department was anticipating that kind of pushback.
Response to the letter I wrote them?
I think there were multiple comments submitted as a part of that meeting, and they're trying to develop a general
The
feel and
recent
response.
meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
because I also submitted a letter to Ms. Lamb
Okay.
for responses as well.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you compared the environmental impact of these two. What about the financial impact for right-of-way and acquisitions?
I think they're roughly equivalent also, aren't they, Louis? Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what I mean. It's really, you say important, I say public involvement is critical on these, because it really is the tipping point.
One big thing for me, April, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but with the recent legislation, do you think we'll have to pay for utility relocation on this, or you think that's something that'll be funded by the state?
I'm not
'Cause
sure.
that's a big cost for us.
I'm not sure that I could answer that, Commissioner, but we can certainly get you an answer from our district utilities coordinator.
That's a big millions of dollars.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that I guess it's impossible to do something like this without impacting someone.
It absolutely
Someone's going to
is.
be displaced, and so the public input is going to be very crucial to figure out who's going to be displaced, if anyone.
I agree, and I think if someone is displaced, you know, that was a concern of mine, that it wasn't going to be a cost to them. It would be a cost to.
The department doesn't
It'll be
know.
a very big cost to the department.
Yeah.
They're tearing down Applebee's up in Tallahassee, you know,
Oh, yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
small fries.
In fact, right-of-way cost is usually sometimes almost as much as construction to build a project, especially when you're going through with a 4-lane or a 6-lane such as Capitol Circle. So, any other questions?
But that's just speculation. So it's going to take public input to really view that, and I think that concrete's how important it's going to be for the public to attend that meeting and have the input.
It is. It is.
Because of the potential impact that would do.
It is. And in fact, I know that we've got the multiple typical sections on the table, being the 4-laning versus this, and we're kind of holding back on coordinating on the on-street parking and the speed limit stuff, because it may not be a non-issue should we go to the one-way pair. If we don't go to the one-way pair, we'll continue that coordination. So we've kind of been holding off on that till we get some public feedback on what they really want. Okay? These are the typical sections for the one-way pairs I mentioned earlier. Northbound would use Crawfordville Highway, southbound Occolocny Street. Still proposing the design speed of 45 miles per hour to maintain that SIS eligibility, but you still get the 4-foot bike lane and 6-foot sidewalk in each direction. So, moving north of Crawfordville now, we're segment 4 from south of East Ivan Road to north of State Road 267, blocks and cutoff. Right now this segment is being advanced. Right-of-way is funded for 17, 18, and 19. 100% design plans are on the shelf for the department, which is part of the reason we're choosing to advance this segment.
How far north, April, I'm sorry? Just north, I mean, just to cover the intersection of Blossom?
Yes, and in fact, Lewis and I were having those discussions. There is a possibility to maybe switch. You see, segment 5 is funded in 16, 17, and 18. And that is the segment, and I don't want to speak out of turn. Right, the segment 5, right? Okay. Okay. Because it covers the intersection. I will mention too this morning, Mr. Harry Reed with the CRTPA expressed a request to look at a roundabout in this location. We'll evaluate that as part of the study. But as I mentioned to him, high speeds may preclude that. And I just want to make you guys aware of that as well. We'll look at it, but we're not sure that it's feasible.
Also, in this segment, you said 100% of the design plans were completed in 2010.
Yes, sir.
Is that different design planning that went on for the segment that you're not the...
The segment 1? Yeah, that's a completely different design consultant.
But I thought you said that you're not involved with that because designing had already...
I'm not. It's just a coincidence that these design plans are on the shelf. Does that make sense? Over the years, the department has made multiple attempts to build this corridor, and over that time, they've put money on segments, and they've been able to get design plans to various stages. But then, because we didn't have any right-of-way or construction funded, they had to go what the department calls, we put them on the shelf. And these two segments just happened to have, I mean, they were completed in 2010. So these were, the design was done, and then they were put on the shelf because there was no money to do anything else.
So when did you get to be project manager of this?
Let's see, I've been in PD&E for a little less than 2 years, so I got put on this project. And but when's your contract execution? Probably late 2012. Yeah.
And so I'm not clear on why that first segment wasn't included in your project.
I can't answer that. I'm not either, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good here? Okay. Segment 6, from Leon County line to LL Wallace Road, 45% design plans. This is one of those cases where I was just describing to you. This is what the department had the money. They got it to 45%. It went on the shelf, completed in 2011. This does have ponds that are designed to meet current permitting regulations, but you can see that segment 7 is about at the same place with design plans that were put on the shelf in 2006, but does not meet permitting regulations. And what that means is they'll have to go back and do a reevaluation of those design plans and look at pond sites.
So the first is segment 5, which is from Bloxham north to the county line.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next segment is from Bloxham south to East Ivan.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And then that's pretty much it in the foreseeable future for now. Those have been funded for right-of-way acquisition. So it's not going to, y'all not starting at Leon County and working south. You're actually kind of punching in the middle and going 4-lane north and south, and then later when you do get the funds, you'll pack them together.
And right-of-way is the only phase that's identified for 4 and 5, so no construction funds have been identified. And the reason we can move forward with those is because we have 100% plans that meet current permitting requirements. So they're at a point where we can go into the right-of-way phase where the other segments are not. We are proposing a rural typical section for 4, 5, 6, and 7 north of Crawfordville with a design speed of 70 miles per hour, 2 12-foot lanes, 5-foot paved shoulder in each direction.
They won't be posted at 70.
It will not. I can't make that commitment, but I would not anticipate that.
It's just the design speed, so the
Right.
road's
Right.
geometrically.
Right, and that's what's preferred for SIS eligibility. where we are now. Original PD&E, as I mentioned to you, was completed in 1996. We're going through what's called the Design and Environmental Reevaluation. We'll have that complete middle of next year. Right-of-way was only funded for segments 1, 4, and 5, 1 being the one down south, the realignment of 319 at 98, and then 4 and 5, the 100% plans we just discussed north of Crawfordville. Construction is not funded for any of these segments at this time. So right now, traffic engineering and environmental analysis is ongoing. I'm here today because the alternatives meeting is coming up in June. We anticipate a public hearing to finalize the project in March of next year, and final conceptual plans ready later this fall based on the input that comes out of the public meeting. We anticipate Federal Highway will approve our concept in June of next year. So Tuesday, June 17th, that's our public meeting at the Crawfordville United Methodist Church, 5:30 to 6:30. It'll be more of an open house format, and we invite people to come in, mingle with our staff. If they have questions, we'll be prepared to answer them. There'll be no formal presentation. We like to keep it informal so that people don't feel intimidated, but that's why we're there, to answer public questions.
How are you going to gauge what the public sentiment is? Are you going to have some forms that people fill out, or?
We do. We have public comment forms that will be available. We'll also do a mail out that'll have a public comment form so that if they can't make it to the meeting, they still have the opportunity to comment. And if you forget your comment form, there'll be additional ones available at the meeting.
Who will these be mailed out to? You said you'll have a mail out form.
The department identifies stakeholders within 300 feet of the center line of the project. In addition, if you want to be included on that mail-out list and are worried or not, you can send me an email. You can send Ian Satter an email with the department, and we'll make sure you're on the mailing list.
So your public comment you're going to receive is mainly from the people that would be affected by right-of-way acquisition?
Yes, that are on the center line of the two alternatives.
So somebody that lives in Smith Creek, is their opinion going to matter on one-way pair or no one-way pair?
I think their opinion matters, yes, sir, but they may not receive a mail-out just because we have to kind of limit our data pool. But certainly, if somebody's interested and they want to know, all they have to do is request to be added to the list.
Or they can go to the public meeting.
Or they can go to the public meeting and we'll have comments.
I guess we'll have a form at the public meeting they can fill out.
And we'll have, in case people forget, we'll have advertisements that will run in the paper also.
I'm just trying to make sure it's as least subjective as possible.
And that's our goal as well.
Is segment 3, do you have the design on segment 3? Is that done?
Let's go back here. So that's the one-way pair.
No, it's not on.
I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Yes. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
That's what you're
No.
Yes.
You need to get some of your engineers up here. Lost Creek to south of East Island. Yeah, that is the one.
That is it. Yeah, that's through Crawfordville.
Is that design? Where are you in that design?
We are not designing that because
I haven't figured out what they're going to do yet.
we haven't figured out what we're
Gotta have the public meeting first.
So like in between, so it's sort of like going to be the same.
so there's 100% plans on the
Road will come
4
next to
lane?
this building.
Okay,
No,
my
I'm talking
mistake.
about
I'm
that.
sorry.
I'm talking about the one.
You hear that, Jerry?
Pardon?
There's 100% plans, which means there are plans done on the 4 lane.
Okay.
But only for the urban typical section, not for the one-way pair, because you'll have to forgive me. I think back when we did the original public involvement, the one-way pair was eliminated from consideration based on public input.
That was
So-
based on the plans. I remember when y'all put them out in the 90s, I think, for that one-way pair, because the planning department still has a set of preliminary plans over there.
I was still in high school.
I was not.
Did you guys have any other questions for
Yep.
me?
Well, if no one has any more questions on this, you had said that you would take back questions and concerns to the other project manager, and so, we're all concerned about the safety of our students in that segment 1. My personal opinion is that there are serious safety issues moving the amount of traffic from where it is now to in front of that high school, whether we put a traffic light in there or sidewalks or whatever else goes in. Now, those are all good features, but moving a multiple of 3 or 4 times as many vehicles in front of that high school that we presently have concerns me. And I've yet to see, and I've asked when we had a representative here before, for any safety studies that had been done, for any studies that had compiled accidents at various intersections on 319 showing why this segment 1 was so much more critical than any other. I've yet to see any of those, and I would like to see that. Also, are there any studies or any information that FDOT has that and each intersection is different, but when they take this traffic, when they take this intersection, move it in front of a high school where it's had maybe 1/4 the traffic it's going to have, and increase the traffic by that much, are there any studies or papers out there that say, well, as long as we put in a traffic light and put in sidewalks, we mitigate this, and it's okay to increase the traffic 3 or 4 times? Those kind of things I think we as a community need to see. So, again, the primary importance is the safety of our students especially, and there are other factors also, as mentioned by this board, in economics, what it's going to cost our county, and then also in commute times for people having to negotiate this. Has the FDOT looked at keeping their intersection where it is now, improving it or not, and putting a traffic light at the high school, different alternatives? Like, it seems like we're only getting one choice right now, and I'll give you some of this.
Okay.
But it may not have
I'd
all of the
appreciate
questions
that.
in it.
Yeah, and it might be best to, we'll follow up with an email and make sure we have all of your concerns, and certainly let us know if we don't. Okay. Okay, with that, I could advance all the way to the end with my contact information, but I think you guys know how to get a hold of me. And any more questions from the board?
Thank you.
I appreciate your
We
presentation.
certainly,
Thank you.
I can't stress enough how important it's going to be to get the public out for that alternatives meeting. We need their input.
Would you be able to just say that date one more time for that alternative meeting?
June 17th, I want to think, was the day.
This June 17th.
Louis, can we put that on our Jessica, on our website?
Oops.
That's going to
There
be
it
a
is.
very important public input meeting.
Very
I think
important.
people need to go and see.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you.
I think it says a lot that they don't want to know what the board thinks, which I think is great.
Okay, our next presentation is going to be given by Keith Lawhorn about mosquito control.
I was joking with Keith the other day how when I remember I used to run mosquito control, the day I got rid of that was one of the best days of my life. I realized.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm just here today to announce the official start of mosquito control season. Just want to announce the way in which citizens can make a request. They can either call us to make a request at 926-0410, or they can go to our website, which is www.Wakulla Health Department, and that is abbreviated DEPT.com. Either way is just fine. And we also have for citizens who want to be sure that they don't want to be sprayed, we also have a do not spray list that they can also request to be put on.
How many times can a citizen receive spraying?
Currently, we're limiting it to 2 per residence. Unless we see the need increase dramatically, then we will open it up more.
You still have to go out and verify the mosquito count, the landing count?
Yes, we do. And we're actually working in conjunction right now with the with emergency management to put out traps and get actual counts in case we have another Debbie that comes about, to ensure possible federal funding.
That was one of the hardest things for me to explain to people. It's not like the old days. You remember the mosquito truck would drive by your house. They can't just go out and spray. They have to have a complaint, and it has to be verified, and they can spray that area.
That is correct.
You can't just say, well, you're spraying this side of Panacea, go ahead and spray all of Panacea.
Right.
You can't do that anymore.
I've received a couple calls. If someone calls to come out of their property, can you schedule a time or give them a window? A couple people have said that they want to open their gate and allow you to come up their driveway, and not leave it open indefinitely.
Understood. And unfortunately, that is not the case. We have one part-time driver, and it's kind of, times are really odd when we're coming out, so they're not going to probably want to call at midnight saying, hey, open up your gate.
Gotcha.
So,
Or at least a window, a 4-hour, 8-hour window, or...
Well, I think, Keith, tell them that a lot of it's based on some nights you can spray, some nights you can't spray.
that is correct.
Okay.
So
Conditions,
when
rain,
conditions
so
are
it's
right, then they can spray.
Yep.
So
If the temperature gets too low, we can't spray. So there's a whole host of factors that just can truly limit
Right.
how much we know ahead of time.
Okay.
Another important thing you guys do is you still do larviciding, right?
And yes, that is
So
correct.
if
And
you have standing water, everybody knows what a mosquito larva looks like, swimming around in there, or a pool, or whatever.
Yep.
These guys can go drop larvicide briquettes in there, I guess that's what you
that
still
is
use.
correct.
Then you won't, it'll kill the mosquitoes before they even fly around.
And those, and we will take unlimited requests for the larvicide. It's on the spray only that is limited request right now.
That's your absolute, you can't do that, you can't larvicide the whole Wakulla River swamp, obviously, or Old Cotton.
Correct.
But if you have a sinkhole or a stagnant wetland in your yard or whatever that's growing mosquitoes, then they can go put these larvicides in there.
it works.
And
It
we
does
do,
work.
and we do that during the day, so we can actually find these water holes and not traipsing around your property at midnight trying to find them.
That's 100 times more effective than spraying.
In the long run, yes. Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Our next presentation is going to be given by Ms. Susan Willis. She's going to be speaking on Mental Illness Awareness Week.
Good evening. We really are going to shift gears here. This one is a little different than the other things we've been talking about. This is a proclamation declaring May 2014 Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas May has been declared National Mental Health Awareness Month for the purpose of increasing attention to the fact that 1 in 4 adults, or 60 million Americans, live with the burden of a mental health problem, such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and other related debilitating illnesses that can strain not only the individual affected, but also their families, friends, and colleagues. Whereas data suggests that less than half of children and adults with diagnosable mental illness receive treatment, addressing the complex mental health needs of children, youth, and families today is fundamental to the future of the state of Florida, and the need for comprehensive, coordinated mental health services for children, youth, and families places upon our community a critical responsibility. And whereas, for many, getting help starts with conversation. It is up to all of us to know the signs of mental health issues and commit to lending a hand to those who are struggling. Too often, shame and stigma leave people feeling like there is no place to turn. It is essential to make sure they know that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength. And whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas it is equally important to prevent behavioral health problems before they occur, such interventions can reduce or delay the onset of such conditions, reduce the severity of symptoms, and support early treatment leading to improved health outcomes and quality of life. And whereas each business, school, government agency, law enforcement agency, healthcare provider, and citizen shares the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Whereas NAMI Wakulla, an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners recognize that behavioral health problems remain a serious public health concern and call upon all Wakulla County citizens, agencies, organizations, and providers to raise mental health awareness and to continue helping Wakulla County residents live longer and healthier lives through improved availability of behavioral health interventions in this community. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the month of May 2014 be known as Mental Health Awareness Month in Wakulla County, and urge all residents to observe this month by spreading the message of raising awareness about the availability of such services to all who need them.
I appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Questions? Y'all are okay?
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, next we're going to have Mr. John Gunter come up. He's a part of the Marine Advisory Committee update. He's chairman of it, as a matter of fact. He's going to give us some update.
That's right. That's right. Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the Board of County Commissioners. My name's John Gunter. I live in Wakulla County. I presently been working for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Been working for the state for about 30 years, serving as a shellfish biologist. And I want to thank you for appointing me to the Advisory Board Committee, and I look forward to helping Wakulla County with its coastal issues. Before I get started, I would also like to recognize the other members of the committee: Steve Cushman, Jody Campbell, Chuck Shields, and Cypress Rudlow, who's the committee vice chair. All very valuable people in their particular fields. I'm sure they'll be an asset for us. I'd like to commend the board for taking the move to establish the Marine Advisory Committee, which is the first step of many in the pursuit of reef permits and other important enhancements of our coastal and marine habitat. In addition, I'd like to thank Captain Tony Murray for attending our meetings and providing us with some valuable information on offshore reef restoration and those kind of processes that we have to go through. So far, we've had 3 meetings since it was formed. The first was just organizational administrative processes. The following 2 meetings were to look at existing and future opportunities and to establish some immediate priorities. As you may be aware, the permitting of reefs is a time-consuming and lengthy process. Depending on potential reef location, you might need 2 permits, one from the state and one from the Corps of Engineers. I'm going to provide you with a status update and the priorities that the committee has identified. The first is the St. Mark's Reef area. The committee has discussed at length the various artificial reefs and how we can better use them to improve tourism and economic growth through marine resources. The committee is in agreement that an enhancement of the St. Mark's Reef is a priority since it already has an open and existing permit. So we don't have to apply for that. The committee would like to pursue grants, specifically through FWC, to continue to build out this permitted reef. Through research and specially designed reef structures, it is believed that we can create a habitat suitable for finfish, stone crabs, and other species associated with offshore reefal complexes. Committee members already possess a permit from FWC for the relocation of species, so we're ready to move forward with that project with your support. The Marine Advisory Committee requests that the Board of County Commissioners approval and ask for county staff, Cherie Keeler, to support to move forward in order to, with the project, seek grant funding and for this enhancement project. This site is currently about 42 acres, so it's got a lot of space out there that we can do some work with. Now, the next step is site selection and surveying. Now, there's a need for reef site selection and necessary survey work during this process. Part of the whole process is to establish a team that can go out and assess these reefs, the existing ones that we want to go ahead and enhance, as well as the future prospective sites. There's a process of collecting data, assessing what state that reef is, what state the bottom is, a number of different things, and it requires multiple trips and, of course, a lot of time. It was estimated that the cost for site selection survey will be approximately $5,000 per site, depending on the distance from shore. Now, ore is not always available to do these kinds of things, so the committee felt it was in the best interest, in order to expedite things and get things going, that we could establish our own research dive team to take part in this. The team can be selected from existing Aquatic Science Association dive team, and these would be volunteer workers. Steve Cushman is working on trying to get funding for this to begin, and he's currently in this process of requesting those funds. Right? At the May 12th meeting, the committee determined it was best to begin the survey process of the second project location to run concurrently with the St. Mark's project. Since this permit process is rather lengthy, this would hopefully see a new permit open around the same time as the completion of the St. Mark's project. The second site would be the old Wakulla Big Bend reef that was started but never completed due to funding. All right, so the next step after this, of course, or even in conjunction with while we're doing this, is before making applications for reef permits, is the completion of a overall reef plan for the county. And Captain Tony Murray has volunteered to help us kind of work through this since he's very, very familiar with this process. So, lastly, partnerships sometimes can be a positive thing, especially when you're dealing with these offshore issues and other counties can be involved. We discussed at the advisory board meeting, maybe particularly involving Taylor County. There's a large, vast amount of suitable bottom for offshore reef restoration areas, and between Wakulla and Taylor. If we could mutually benefit from a partnership, we may be able to take advantage of a broader range of resources, funding, expertise, those kinds of situations. The return on the construction of reef restoration and enhancement is basically, for every dollar spent on that is $138 is recaptured in revenue. So we feel these artificial reefs coupled with estuary restoration, which I know there's some ongoing projects with that being proposed, will become a major source of tourism, revenue, economic growth for Wakulla County, and worthwhile effort to pursue. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have questions also.
I have, basically, I just noticed in the paper the other day that Mexico Beach just approved to put in, I think, maybe 12 18-foot artificial cubes, pretty much pyramidal in shape and so forth. It makes you want to go down there and see if you can fish on one of those reefs. And I think
sure.
I think if we can put our money here where the benefit of our county, if we put our money out here in the reefs and the oyster programs, it's probably the best dollar that we can spend. It's you mentioned partnering with Taylor County. That would be out around the Ecofina or the Asilla,
right,
that area. So that's basically Wakulla County. When you're on the water, you don't know which county you're in anyway. So most of our people at the lighthouse fish to the east anyway. So now, do we need to direct staff on the seeking of grant funding for the? Do we need to make some resolution?
Yes.
To do that.
Is that correct, Sheree?
That'll be coming back to you guys.
Mr. Edwards, Cherie points her finger to you.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to you guys on that.
So well, you don't have to come back to me. I will.
We'll bring that back.
Okay, so that will come back to us to vote on.
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. I'm glad. I understand that we had to have your advisory committee in order to fulfill certain conditions of being able to receive grant funding and so forth.
That's correct.
And I think you've probably got the best group of people that you have all marine people on your committee.
Right.
So I have all the confidence in the world in what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
That's right. Questions, yeah. When you said reef restoration, are you talking about natural restoration of reefs, or are you talking about restoration of artificial reefs?
Restoration of artificial reefs, yes.
Okay.
The permitting process is mostly just for these areas that, especially in the case of the St. March Reef, has already been developed to a certain point, and that's, and as well as even the Wakulla Big Bend area and some of these others. And we'll have to go back and look at some of these other reefs that their permits have expired, so we'll have to go back to those areas, assess those areas as well, and then see what kind of enhancement or, areas things that we can do within that framework of the process.
And the estimate of the dollar return that you had mentioned, what was that ratio again for every dollar?
For every dollar of spent on reef construction or restoration, 138 is recaptured in revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
I heard $5,000 for site selection. Any other anticipated costs that you foresee, or is everything proposed for the grants that we're trying to pursue?
I don't know that I could answer that right offhand. What do you think, Steve?
Basically, we're in one of those catch-22 situations. We have to have the site survey and mapping done before we can even apply for a grant or a permit. So there's no money really there right now that's been set aside that we know of to actually get started on the site surveys. We're assembling the team already, which there'll probably be myself and Cypress Ludlow. I know Tony Murray's not a diver, but he knows where all the sites are, and he's got the equipment, and coupled with some of the equipment I have, we'll be able to get that done. What we do need is it's going to be between $5,000 and $6,000 per site, depending on how far offshore it is, just in fuel charges alone and materials that we need to get the surveys done. But we have to get the surveys before we can even get moving forward on the permitting process and then capture the grant funding. So I've taken it upon myself to go after that funding. I think I've identified 3 sources of it so far, and we're probably about 75% of the way of getting to where we need. We wanted to shoot for $12,000 in funding to be able to start on the Wakulla Big Bend, and then once we move forward with that survey is done, we'll start on the next one right after that. We want to try to shoot to where we have an ongoing reef project going back to back. So when the Wakulla Reef is finished, we would start on, or the St. Mark's Reef is finished, we'd start on Wakulla Big Bend, and then after that maybe move off to Rotary or whatever site we choose after that.
Do you have some target sites or no ballpark idea how far offshore, or just any kind of idea at this point?
The Wakulla Big Bend Reef is about approximately 1.6 miles southeast of St. Mark's right now. So probably for that one we would put all the boats over in St. Mark's at Shields and then run out of there. As we move over closer to Rotary, we would probably run out of Panacea. So I've asked Cherie by email if we could possibly get the use of one of those dock slips at Rock Landing for putting the boats out there while we're in the middle of doing the survey.
Commissioner Thomas, I think all of these are going to be on the inshore inside the 9 mile.
Is there a targeted depth that they'll all be, or does that change?
The depth range on most of them is between, I believe, 25 and about 42, 43 feet, somewhere in there.
But you do plan to move them to the inshore inside the 9 mile?
Right now, everything we're targeting is within state waters.
It's all within state.
What fish species are you trying to propagate? Or is it...
Well, there was discussion on relocating stone crabs to some of the St. Mark's Reef and designing specific habitats for that. And then what we would target would be a lot of the grouper and snapper species. You know, like I said weeks before, the finfish actually spawn in the oyster beds. That's their spawning grounds, and then they'll move out into these reefs as they mature.
I think this is really a good introduction, but I think personally I need a lot more information before I can move forward on this, and I'd appreciate receiving what information you can forward to the board, and then I would appreciate also some discussion on this before we bring forward an item.
One of the things that you know, when we formed the committee, and the whole purpose of forming the OR was going to do exactly what they're talking about now. I understand OR is committed elsewhere.
Yes.
But the original, and y'all need to understand, so us setting this up was OR was going to do exactly what they're asking for.
Right.
Okay? So there was never an intent for the county to get into that business of going and doing that, because we were promised by OR, we'll take care of that for you.
Right.
So there's liabilities that come with this. There's monies that come with this. Our attorney over here is about to have a cow because of the liabilities involved. So I would just caution you that it's a great thing, we need to move forward, but we've got to make sure if we do move forward with this, which is great, we need to do this, but at the end of the day, we've got to make sure it falls within, we indemnify it right and do all our legal things right. But understand, or when we started the committee, or we met with OR, FWC, and the Army Corps. All right, and that was the agreement. FWC and Army Corps said, you got to have this committee to start it up to do this. And OR said, we'll pull in the site survey. Then we can apply. We'll apply for the grant then we'll get the money, and then we'll build the reefs out of the existing. We got to stay within the first was the existing tracks that have already been the permits have already expired. Now, it's a good idea to go to St. Mark's and build that out. They're exactly right there. But the others are supposed to be within those existing old ones, and then once we get that together, we're going to get the other permitted sites and then permit everything in Wakulla County at one time through Army Corps and FWC. So that was the original intent. I think that's where you're heading. I just want to make sure they're.
I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can permit them all at the same time. It seems like that you would go one to one.
That was suggestion, was to permit everything at one time, all that you can in one shot, I should say.
The only problem with that is if we go after permitting every reef out there, we're going to need around $140,000 just to get started.
Well, but that's, I'm just telling you what was original. The original deal that was the baseline that was laid out when we were sold this. So understand, Orr now says I got too much work to do after they've sold us into moving this far. So I'm just letting y'all know that.
Well, we haven't spent any money, regardless of whatever. We haven't spent any money.
And I'm not saying you don't want to, but I'm just saying that we were sold, we're going to be doing this, and now all of a sudden we got the committee started and we're not, and all of a sudden they're backing out.
I don't see them backing out. I see them just giving up.
Backing out. Not them, Orr, not those guys. Orr, they're coming forward because Orr is retreating now.
What's OR stand for?
The Organization of Artificial Reefs.
Yeah.
There you go.
Tony Murray was on the board of OR, and he has since pulled off of the board. So he's pretty much the driving force when it comes to artificial reefs. He probably is one of the most knowledgeable we have in this. He doesn't live in Wakulla, but he's here a lot.
Yeah.
He actually keeps his boat over at Shields. Go ahead.
You definitely have to talk to
I know. If we did use OR and say they were available, the process would not be as fast. We would be at OR's, whenever they got around to it. So I think probably the best thing to do is we're having another committee meeting in, June 12th?
June 12th.
Is to take all this information back and develop a good solid agenda item with, on the cost, what reefs are out there. We've already provided that information. One time we could do it again. There's something like 19 reefs that were permitted over the last 10 years, and they need to go out and look at those and then come back with maybe a Plan A and a Plan B for the commissioners to look at and vote on.
Yeah. Basically, whatever I can do to help you, let me know, whatever I can do that. I think the majority of us here recognize the benefit of the reefs and the oysters to Wakulla County. I'd say it's 50% of our retail business is involved in seafood, oystering, fishing, and so forth. So, contrary to my administrator, and not contrary to my administrator, but let me know how I can help you, and I'll work with my administrator to make sure that, with board approval, that we work with you.
And we will, and I think we just got to work through this and figure out, like you're saying, how much money do you need, what's entailed, and we kind of got to get a scope of work and walk through all the hurdles that have to go through in government. So
I would say basically our job is to do everything we possibly can to help them.
If I have the money, yes, sir.
And the other thing is the Big Bend Coastal Conservancy, which Tony Murray is now the chairman of that board. I'm the chairman of the ASA. We're both 501c3s. ASA has several of the OR divers on our staff. So, we have the ability to pull in with those two groups and basically form what OR was anyway. So we have that capability if we need it.
And I'll speak to you guys at the meeting, but, we're also going to need, if the board does approve moving forward with investing some funds in this, we'll just need a budget for next year and this year so that we can project it, because we're flowing into next year's budget and we have very little left over from this year.
And that's what Tony's working on right now, is a comprehensive plan for the next 5 years.
That would be great. A 5-year plan would be fantastic.
Basically. Basically.
That made me smile.
I just want to make sure we don't discourage these gentlemen in the meanwhile. We're here to help. Like the citizens who come to the county for help, we're here to help first, not to throw up roadblocks.
That's right.
As long as we don't have to raise taxes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And that's
We will raise taxes.
No, I was just saying that more just to clarify how we got where we're at, and
I
that these guys
understand.
are actually stepping up.
We all want to
or
understand
step
each
back,
other.
Okay?
We all want to understand each
all
other.
right.
Also, I understand that water projects are going to be a big priority to the legislature next year, and so maybe we need to start putting something together in case we don't get another mechanism for it. Let's go ahead and ask for the whole thing and put all the reefs together and
Exactly.
and maybe submit that as a legislative project.
Yep, we can do that.
I can't figure out a way to make BP pay for this.
Restore Act, I wasn't going to mention Restore Act.
All right, do we have any more discussion on these awards and presentations?
I'll make a motion to approve consent.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to approve consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we don't have any planning and zoning issues tonight. We don't have any general business or commissioner agenda items or county attorney items that's been listed. We've got one add-on item with county administrator.
Yes, this agenda item requests board confirmation of the appointment of Mr. Christopher Cody Sahlberg as the Director of Parks and Facilities Management.
Motion to approve.
second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
A true sop chopian, right, Richard?
Amen.
William Sahlberg's son. I remember Cody, when he was a little kid, we called him Bigfoot.
We're very excited to have Cody. When he gets on board, he will make he's a great asset to our
I
county.
think his brother Susan Sahlberg, right, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think he'll do great.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, next, we got the citizen, do we have any?
No, hold on, I'm not
Okay,
done
all right, go
yet.
ahead.
I'm not done
You
yet,
got more
boss.
add-on items than that? I thought you only had...
I got more comments here.
Okay, go ahead.
Got a couple things. One is, I'd like to invite everyone to our annual Memorial Day ceremony to be held on Monday, the 26th at 10 a.m. in front of the courthouse. That's this coming up Monday. Also, a reminder, the FY 13-14 solid waste and fire hardship applications are due on June 1st, which we'll take them on the 2nd because the 1st is on a Sunday, but that's in our ordinance, so we'll take them on the 2nd. We need to make sure that people get those applications in.
Is that being noted at the senior center? Because every year we have somebody come back in the middle of June and say they didn't. And the people that had qualified for it last year, are we sending them a notice to renew, or how's that being handled?
It go out on the...
Yes, we've got it actually where it goes out on everyone's, on the trim notice, as well as we have advertised this more than
It's
more
not something
than
that's
McDonald's advertises. Right.
It's
And
not-
it goes on the homestead.
It's not something that we can automatically renew because their situation may change from year to year.
Yeah, but might be working on that. We're going to see what we can do. We're looking at ways to improve that, along with Commissioner Thomas is helping us out on, and we're talking to the property appraiser's office about a possible change there. We're just working through the pluses and minuses right now. Secondly, as you know, we have June 5th. We have a planned BoCC budget workshop. We have been historically here lately moving all of our workshops to the Mondays where our board meetings are. Okay, June 5th is a Thursday. So, do you guys want to move forward
Yes.
June 5th to the 2nd?
No, I want to,
No,
move
we
it.
want to go to the Monday.
That's what I mean. That's
Yeah.
from 5th to the 2nd.
Yes.
Can I get a nod head from you there, Dr. Kessler, too?
I just want to look at mine.
And from August 7th, the same thing. We got another budget workshop on the 7th. It needs to be moved to the 4th. Same thing, same time.
So, go ahead. Well, the workshops we're gonna have...
All this is,
it gonna
Dr.
be at
Kessler,
5
is
o'clock?
moving the workshops to the Mondays of our board meetings, right before Mondays of our board meetings.
So the June 2nd was one.
Second would be one, and August the 4th would be the other. And right now, we'll anticipate each one of those starting at 4 o'clock.
And lasts until 6.
lasts until 6.
And that, to me, in my mind, that saves a day that staff doesn't have to be here, overtime, comp time, whatever, and we can do it on a meeting day. Right?
That's right, that's right.
So,
I was talking to Jessica.
okay,
Boss, yeah.
Tuesday, all right, great.
Okay? Very good, thank y'all. We'll make those changes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move them to
Okay,
the
so
day.
go ahead. Well, I was just
I'll
gonna
make
say,
a
I had
motion
Ed
to do what
done.
David said.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. I like it.
Okay, Paige, do we have any
Get that,
citizens
Brenda?
to be heard for the second? Okay, we have one citizen to be heard for the second, Mr. Hugh Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hugh Taylor, 1357 Martin Luther King Road. Hate to say this, but the health department did not need to notify us of mosquito season.
You know it already.
We know it. Mr. Merritt, your idea of last meeting, I thought, man, it was a great idea, and I thought I'd see it on the agenda. Too bad. It's not. Holding off on repealing the wetlands ordinance until the people have spoken only makes sense. Otherwise, you're encumbering, man, you talk about liability. You're encumbering the citizens of this county with a tremendous potential liability if you don't do that, and the item passes. It's back there. Intersection, I'd like to talk a bit about it, 319 and 98. Apparently, as I understand it, there was another route originally for the intersection. Then Mr. Moore, as a private citizen, wrote a letter offering his property for free for right-of-way. And it was free and unqualified. Then, all of a sudden, the intersection changes. And Mr. Moore makes almost $1 million. If I was very disappointed with whatever they did at the church, FDOT did at the church the other evening. Number one, the time was pretty tough for most citizens. Another thing was the format was just, here's what we're going to do. No public input. But if I had one question to ask DOT, which I am in the process of getting ready to ask, is how did this change happen? That's all. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more citizens to be heard. See, the discussion item that I had and the discussion item that Commissioner Kessler had has been pulled, but anyway, we're gonna I'm gonna start with Commissioner Kessler, and we'll work this way. Do you have any other discussion?
I'd like you to come back to me and just reorganize.
Okay. Well, Mr. Thompson.
Sure. Chris Russell brought up the idea about the traffic light. I was there that night, and I spoke to the engineer as well. And you know, I think we're all concerned about safety, and if safety is concerned, it does make sense that, you know, I think the engineer told us it's probably 2016 before we would see anything there.
Traffic light where? Just so I'm sure.
Basically at the proposed location, but go ahead and put the traffic light in now, knowing that the light head will have to change out if the traffic pattern changes and the intersection comes in.
So it will be to serve the high school bus exit and
Right.
98 only?
Right, so during school hours, it'll operate as a regular traffic light. They can set up the timing on that. They can use that to, you know, control traffic, stop the flow. You know, I heard that was a major concern of people flying through there when the kids are crossing the street. So that would be a mechanism for stopping the traffic. We may ask for it, and they say, no, we've already got a plan, we're already in place, but, you know, if safety is the concern, it doesn't hurt for us to ask.
I can think of 2 large churches I'd like to see that at too, by the way, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I thought it was a good idea. I'd like to see if that's something that we're in agreement. If we're 5-0 in agreement, we can at least send a letter. That's all we'd be doing is encouraging DOT to consider that and escalating just the traffic light portion. That would also give us the ability to, you know, after it's in place, they could study that. They could see if there's a difference, if the safety has been improved as a result of that. You know, if there's not a 5-0 support, and if we've got at least 3, then I'd be glad to bring it back as a regular agenda item.
You think it would
I can agree with that.
make any difference to go to the CTST first, or straight from the board? Chris is nodding his approval.
Yeah. And I spoke to Harry Reid about this
I don't mind
the
asking
next
him
day.
to look
and
at it, yeah.
Well, we had actually a year and a half, 2 years ago, contacted and approached DOT on this, and they actually have been down there and looked at it with their engineering crew, and Harry Reid actually came down, and because that was one of the things we were trying to do was in the interim was get a light put up there, and it kind of just dropped up. For some reason, just kind of dropped. So
Big issue on the CTST side is those kids walk down the side of 98 towards
Right.
Panacea, and then they run across the road to get over to the store. And that's the big issue. I don't mind asking them to
There
look at it.
were 30 cars on the other side of the road last week. 30, and there's probably 3 kids in every car. So you have.
I would support your, if you
I will
made a
too.
motion, I'd vote with you to look, ask DOT to look at it.
And I would as well.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
But we would need a 5-0, so.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to have some discussion from the board. I think it's a great idea having a traffic light there. I think everything we can do to have better safety for our students, no one on this board would be opposed to that. At the same time, I don't want it to be a sign that, at least for myself, that I'm in favor of moving 3 times the amount of traffic or 4 times the amount of traffic in front of the high school.
I don't think they're going
Yeah.
to confuse the issues because it's a temporary light that only works during the school times versus a full-time. I don't think it would be a endorsement of the plan.
Well, I'd like us to at least make that clear if the board feels that, how does the board feel? Do we feel that moving 3 or 4 times the amount of traffic in front of that high school is something that is not good for our children? I feel that way.
I'm not going to express my opinion on that in this item. If we want to say, notwithstanding your future plans, we would ask that you look at putting a light here for safety of kids. And just say, I don't know what the proper word would be. Was that the proper word, notwithstanding? Or irregardless of what you're going to do in the future, we ask you to look at putting a light there now?
This is basically
Maybe
just
regardless,
us guys
but,
to look at it.
you can eliminate the ear, but is it important for us as a board to have an opinion about this traffic diversion from where it is now to in front of the high school? Is that important for us?
I mean,
This is separate, I think.
The
I think it's separate than this.
Okay, so let's handle this one first, and maybe when it gets back to me, I'll bring up something else then. Sure. Okay, so you got my head nodding. Okay, so we're all in favor of writing that letter to the...
I mean, I'm gonna need someone to give a motion in a second.
I make a motion that we
Second.
write the letter asking for a traffic light to be put in place at that location in front of the high school. We can ask. We can ask for the crosswalk.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, I'll amend
So
that.
Chris is not speaking from the audience.
Traffic light
No,
and
that's not him.
crosswalk.
Now, that is not Chris speaking from the audience.
Not speaking from the audience. I'll
Chris.
amend my second.
Chris,
Did you amend your
Wait,
motion?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna come to your
Second.
meeting.
all right, so we have the motion made in second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you have any other,
Yes. I just wanted to make an announcement. I've sent an email to staff already, county administrator and the county attorney, that I was previously appointed as the alternate on the canvassing board, but I believe for a couple reasons I would have a conflict there, and I'd like to avoid any appearance of conflict, so I plan to resign from that board.
Okay. Do you have any other?
Richard, you'll need to bring back...
I'll have to bring back another alternate. I mean, I'm the primary for the board, and Ralph was the alternate, so I will have to, at about the next board meeting, I will present someone for the board to consider as an alternate.
I was speaking with Jill Walker about this. She said there are others that could serve as the board representative. Didn't have to be a commissioner.
True.
If you're...
An elector.
Huh?
A qualified elector.
If you're thinking at all, Richard, about either advocating for the wetlands, or against the wetlands, or for a candidate, or not for a candidate, I highly recommend you get off that board. And
Well, that's something
I
that's
think Jill is
something-
going to talk to you about that.
Exactly, because that's something that I may consider myself.
Because
you
there
know.
doesn't even need to be a perception of
Right.
anybody on one side of the issue or the other, you know.
It could be a major trip hazard that you just slip into that, you know.
I may come back at the next meeting with actually another primary and alternate, but I will
You're
have
gonna talk to
something.
Judge Walker?
Yes, I will have something to present to the board.
I don't want to throw Cheryl Ola under the bus, but she did it as a fill-in for somebody, and she did a pretty good job. But it's not a very exciting committee to be on. It's counting papers is basically what it is.
Well, I've got one last thing, and I just want to kind of float this to see if there's any buy-in on it, and if so, I'll bring it back. We approved an amendment to our code enforcement process earlier, and I didn't want to bring it up at that time because that was pretty clean. I didn't want to convolute all that, but I think that we need to amend our process so we do not take anonymous complaints. Everything we do is in the sunshine. Everything we do is subject. You know, I've got a couple of examples, and I'm not saying that that can't be done. I think, you know, most counties do that. There are some counties that do not take anonymous complaints. Also, the Florida Commission on Human Relations, if you're going to make a civil rights complaint, then it says right here, there's two different statutes that you cannot do an anonymous complaint with that. You know, so if it's affecting civil rights and you can't do it anonymously, what's the difference with property rights?
I want to be sure everybody understands too, though, I'm sorry, is that under our code, we as commissioners are not allowed to make anonymous complaints.
Right.
So anybody
and
that
I'm
makes-
fine with
yeah,
that.
I understand that, but we've set that standard for ourselves that we shouldn't be allowed to complain against, you know, such and such. One of my supporters called me and said they didn't like what their neighbor was doing, so I went and made an anonymous complaint. We can't do that, so nobody needs to worry about that. What you're talking about is just
Actually,
regular
citizen on citizen
complaints.
Yeah.
And I'm going to agree with that too. That you know, that there's been several issues that we've had with the code enforcement. One thing that has bothered me, and I'm going to agree with you as well, that whenever a citizen has a problem or whenever a citizen has a complaint, that the person who has been complained against, they haven't been allowed to know who it was that done the complaining, and sometimes whenever they find out there was other underlying issues already going on between that citizen and the other one, they just used our code board system as a means to an end, just to basically go after a fellow citizen because of another issue that didn't have anything to do with code enforcement.
It's something I'm willing to talk about or think about. I'm sure there's a lot of other issues that we're not bringing up, like safety, or, you know, what if it's a legitimate complaint and you really don't want the person to know because you're worried they'll come beat you up or cut your tires, or so there's other issues. But I'd be willing to talk about it.
Yeah, if there's merit, I'll bring it back as an agenda.
I'd be willing to talk about it as well, because I think it is important if a citizen has a complaint against them that they need to be aware, be able to know who is the citizen doing the complaint.
Absolutely. That's all I have.
Right. Well, I guess David's already brought it up, but I just wanted to encourage everyone next Monday on Memorial Day to come to the courthouse and to just partake in the ceremony. The Memorial Day ceremony we're going to have to just give remembrance to all those veterans that have served and fallen for the freedoms that we have and that we enjoy. There's a lot of times we take the we take our freedoms for granted sometimes, but there's veterans that through the years that have yet paid the ultimate sacrifice, and this is the one day each year that we set aside to remember those veterans who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and just would like to encourage everyone, if you can, that day to come and partake in the Memorial Day service at the courthouse. Thank you.
Is it the courthouse?
Richard, I'll speak after Howard.
Go ahead, Randy. You got anything?
I got two items. Number one, I just want to remind everyone, we had Janice Watson from the Regional Planning Council, which I'm the board representative, come up and speak about these small business loans. I don't think anybody in Wakulla is taking advantage of it. And now they're starting to offer lines of credits. Instead of you saying, I want to go borrow $20,000, maybe you can get a $20,000 line of credit if you're a oyster fisherman or if you're a beekeeper or whatever, and your money comes in at one time. All you need to qualify for is a rejection letter from a bank. I could walk up to Centennial Bank tomorrow and get a rejection letter. I think not anybody.
Me too.
Yeah. Anybody trying to start a small business, you go to the bank and say, I'd like to borrow some money because I want to increase my production of XYZ. I want to hire a couple of people. I want to do this. I want to do that. They're not going to loan you the money. It's just the way the market is. But this is several hundreds of thousands of dollars available for the citizens of this county to use to either do a startup business or to expand an existing business. Now the difference between them and the bank, you still have to have collateral. It's not money that you can borrow without collateral, but I've seen them take some weird things for collateral. A guy was starting a business up, going up and rigging 4G antennas on cell phone towers. Apparently that's a hot business to be in right now. And he put up trucks, ropes, wire, all kind of weird things for collateral that a bank would never accept. And he was able to expand his business. There's a carpet business in Tallahassee's taking advantage of it. Several businesses in Franklin County, little restaurants kind of like Hutton's or stuff like that. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that program was out there. And I might ask Janice to come back and speak again because I don't think anybody in Wakulla is taking advantage of it. And it's a lot of money.
I've spoken to a couple people that have applied, and the problem that some are running into is you still have to income qualify. So it's not going to be a speculative type business. If you don't, if you're an oysterman and you haven't been making enough income to meet the note, then you're not going to qualify. And so there have been a couple that I know of that have applied and didn't make it.
It's not for a new business then?
It can be, but you have to be able to income qualify. So you have to have another income source in order to support that. So if you don't have any income and this is a brand new startup business and you've got projected income, because it's the Small Business Administration, so they're going to...
No, it's not Small Business Administration.
This is a different one?
This is the Appalachia Regional Planning Council.
Okay,
It has its
I stand corrected. Hopefully
It has its own program.
Well, we do need a presentation on that because maybe some people will qualify.
Yeah, Janice, she came and gave the presentation, but it's money from the state that's administered by the Appalachia Regional Planning Council. It's not small business. They have nothing to do with the federal government. They just give them a pot of
But they're
money.
not following SBA guidelines?
I think no.
Okay.
Because there's a guy that failed Pine Straw and Bristol. It's only for the counties around here.
Okay.
It's different and it's a lot more flexible. And I think that line of credit thing is a real game changer because you may not want to go borrow $20,000 to hire an employee. You may want to just take out a line of credit till you can take your honey off you, whatever. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'll ask Janice to come back and make a presentation.
Sounds good.
Second thing, CRTPA, we had our meeting today. Myself, Commissioner Crowley from Gadsden County, and Commissioner Barfield from Jefferson County are going to be meeting with not these guys, but Kimley Horn, the consultants working on the 2040, I think it's called, right, plan? 2040 long-term traffic plan to be sure that at least, Wakulla, Gadsden, and Jefferson, which are the small counties on the CRTPA, that our positions are felt, not just urban, Tallahassee, Leon County. We don't want all the focus to be on them. Nothing against, we love our brothers to the north, but we have different concerns. They're concerned about connecting sidewalks. We're concerned about getting sidewalks. So they're just, if we can just change the criteria a little bit now in advance to reflect more concerns for rural countries, I think that's important. But we have a meeting with them at 5 Wednesday. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, getting back to the 31998 and the safety issue, for our students there. And I asked the question, how does this board feel about diverting a multiple of traffic from its present site to in front of the high school? So I guess before I go on, I need to understand what the board feels about it. Is that, in the board's mind, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, I've already expressed my opinion. I think it's a terrible thing. But I can't go on to the next step unless there's some...
I can interject there if I may. My position, it's already pretty much a done deal. I would basically say it was studied by the DOT in multiple fashions with high professionals doing that who have extremely credibility in what they do, and that's what they have chosen, using all the criteria that they can find and whatever. So they've already made that decision for you.
Well, I know that they've made the decision for Wakulla County, and I know that we can say this isn't a county issue because we can say that, but it is a county issue.
I'll
Okay.
express my opinion.
Let me continue. Let me continue over here for a second. You know, and I don't want to get down on anybody on the board. What I'm asking is, as a board, we have this very powerful agency saying, this is our plan right now. I haven't seen the safety studies. I haven't seen the accident studies. I haven't seen anything that this community might need to see in order to say, you know, it's plausible. Maybe sending not the 4,000 trips a day in front of that high school, maybe sending 15,000 trips a day in front of the high school is going to be safer when we have that traffic light. I haven't seen any of that. So just to say that because the king is wearing clothes, he may not be wearing clothes. And that's my concern for the safety of our kids. And just intuitively, it doesn't seem right. It seems totally against everything that I mean, why do all other communities in our country strive to keep traffic away from their schools? That's what I'm saying. I get emotional on it.
I'm gonna qualify what I'm about to say. This is about like us arguing over Obamacare, as far as I'm concerned. We're just expressing our opinion. There's not a lot we can do about it. Now, having said that, instinctively, you're right. I agree with you. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's a good idea. In fact, we met with Tommy Barfield with CRTPA. I personally think 319 should be rerouted to 98 and just made one big curve. If you wanted to go towards Pear, you go to the light. If you wanted to go certain ways, have the intersection there, but most of the traffic goes to Panacea. And that was my suggestion. They didn't seem to like that idea. Very good. But I guess, kind of to mirror what Jerry said, I guess they know what they're doing. I mean, that's what they do, is stuff like that. And, you know, that's kind of my opinion on it. And I agree, at first blush, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's a good idea, but for whatever reason, whatever I suggested, which I think has been suggested before, but didn't really get any traction.
Right.
And they thought it'd be safer for the kids to have that stoplight there with a T intersection, and it's going to be 6 lanes, I think, right? Lots of turn lanes, lots of lanes, and that's what they think is the right thing to do. They're the experts. I'm going to defer to their opinion. It's not going to do me any good to make a stink anyway. I gave them my opinion.
And I appreciate your opinion. So I have one opinion. I have 2 opinions. So can I have the other 2?
I'll just share my opinion. Similar to that is I think DOT, for the most part, I'm kind of looking at it in the point of a realist, that DOT they're a powerful state agency, and they have the latitude to determine their own course of action and what it is that they want to do, and they laid out a plan, and I think the burden of proof is on DOT for them to they have the engineers, they have the staff to look at it, and I feel like that they have analyzed it, and that's just where I'm at on this. That they've already purchased the land, they've got the plan in action, and I think you know, we can send up an opinion. I mean, this board can vote on an opinion contrary to what they want, but at the end of the day, they have the latitude to pretty much, you know, do what they want with their road and their property.
Absolutely. There's you know, there's going to be pros and cons with everything, and it's not easy. I look at Wakulla Middle School. You basically got a school at a dead end in the neighborhood, so everybody is going two-way traffic through that neighborhood, and in what is probably not the most ideal place, but you have to deal with it. You got a lot of residences, a lot of kids that live there. River Springs, my daughter goes to River Springs, and you go there every afternoon, and there are cars basically either stopped in the road or in the ditch, lined up, waiting to get in and out. So that's certainly not ideal. You know, go to Chiefland, and there's an example of this exact same model that they did a redesign, and I mean it's almost identical. They took what was a merging turn before, and they're teeing it dead into the school. I mean, almost identical to what we're seeing here. Is it better to have less traffic in front of the school? Absolutely. I don't think we can argue that, but I think it's hard to use that solely as the basis to try to stop something that's already moving without our control, when DOT can clearly show us schools all over the state that have a way higher traffic count than what's going to be here, even if everybody goes through there. So I would just encourage the citizens, if that's you know, if you think that something is not right, then you need to reach out to those folks. I don't think it's the authority of this board to try to solve that, no more than we would try to stop Obamacare or anything else. We have things that we're responsible for. We've been told by the Sheriff's Department, by the Superintendent, by a DOT engineer that safety has been looked at. You know, and I hope that's correct, and I wouldn't mind seeing that just like you said. You know, there's so many places where there's a lot more traffic. Leon High School has more cars that go by that every day than we're going to see in front of Wakulla High School.
And if they haven't done these studies, okay, and they haven't done their job, that means there's a conspiracy, right?
I'm not saying, I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy. I would just like to see the studies. I would like to see that information. What is so difficult for them to provide the studies and the documentation?
That's
and,
fine.
But
you think
we've
they
asked
are
for it.
there. You think they're there.
Oh, I don't know. We had somebody here. We asked that person. I personally wrote a letter.
If they're not there, then there's a conspiracy.
I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy. I'm just saying I would like to see the studies. We live in an electronic age. Send me the attachments.
I agree.
I want to see it. And as far as and I appreciate all your opinions. You know, I appreciate you taking the courtesy to respond to the polling I just did of you. So, and I will get to the second thing based on that polling. But I want to go back for a second to a lot of schools have traffic in front of them, more traffic in front of them than Wakulla High School. And that's an absolute fact. And Chiefland's an absolute fact. The problem that we can't compare Chiefland to us, even though the design might be almost exactly similar, is that all that traffic was going in front of that school before they realigned the intersection. They didn't take and say, we're going to take 3 or 4 times the amount of traffic now and put it in front of the school. It was already going by there. And so some situations you're just stuck with. We have an option here, or hopefully we had an option here, of not putting more traffic in front of the high school. So what I'd like this board to consider is a letter that would go to FDOT basically stating our concern over this diversion of traffic, and if they would please look at all of the options as far as what brings our students the greatest safety. So that would be something.
I asked as a member of the chairman of the CRTPA, asked Tommy Barfield, sat down with him, David, right? You were there. Harry was there. Asked him the same question about why don't you do it like this? And they said they felt this was safer. If you want to write a letter, I encourage you to do that. Put it on county letterhead.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I will do that. And then as far as them being the experts, and this is sort of not going to endear FDOT.
They're just engineers. They don't care.
But we all remember pictures of a bridge going to nowhere, and we have these horrible things that have happened as far as construction errors.
There's a road to nowhere in Sop Choppy, actually.
Well, there we go.
Right, Richard? Yeah.
There we go. So anyway, you know, mistakes are made, and maybe this is a mistake. But surely, at least the parents of the students should know that this is happening, that the parents should know that this plan of realignment is going to place 3 or 4 times the traffic in front of that school, from 4,000 to 11 to 15,000.
If they showed you a study that this was safer, would you then be satisfied?
If it was a valid study, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know how they would do a study like that, to be honest.
Basically, I don't want Howard sending a letter
He can say it from himself.
under his letterhead representing the board.
That's...
No, he's not representing the board.
Well, the thing I wanted to mention, I think it had been said one time in the past that if any of, if one of us sent a letter that's got county letterhead that lists on the left-hand column the chairman and vice chairman and everything, then for something to be on that, I think that has to be an action, that has to be a board action. Now,
I just did that a little while ago.
Depends on who signed.
Well,
I
It's
sent
not
a letter from
representing, it's the opinion of the board.
I sent a letter to the governor's office about regional planning council about continuing the funding just because I'm on the planning council, and I put it on county letterhead.
Started off on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I think Howard is certainly entitled to write a letter from Dr.
Okay.
Kessler to whoever he wants to on county letterhead.
well, I was just wanting to, just clarify that, because in the past, I have refrained from doing that because the reason in the past I refrained because I didn't want to send something, and then in the left-hand column you've got all of us on there, and I felt like that if it was used on county letterhead with all of our names on it, who's the chairman, vice chairman, that was something that needed to come before the board.
That man right there sends letters all the time.
I send all letters all the time like that. I just can't say on behalf of the board unless you guys have approved it.
You have to spell it out when you...
Right, you just say, this is from Commissioner Harden or Commissioner Thomas or Commissioner Barrett.
So I think it's fine if Howard wants to do that. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Everybody's
Second.
done.
No, wait a minute. Have
anybody?
Whoa.
Oh, should have spoke up.
You can
had a quiet
adjourn
moment there.
You can adjourn it some other time. I had input from the Historical Society. They are going to benefit our county greatly when they get the historical township put together and everything. And they have asked me if we would waive our fees that they're having to pay to do their work.
The building fees?
The building fees. And we can do that.
Those can be waived, but we have to pull them out of the general fund.
I don't care where we have to pull them out of.
And that's up to you guys.
Well, we're not pulling them out. We're just not putting them in, David.
No,
we have to pay.
We have to.
The money has to be paid to the building.
We have to pay.
Oh, we have to
How much money are we talking about?
How much money?
Oh, no. Well, I guess the question is...
They've asked this before, and the board voted before not to do that.
Okay, so those fees...
They have to be borne by somebody. They just can't be waived.
Okay, I would say this: the benefit that they're going to do for the county, and the number of people that are going to come to that facility, and all their work is volunteer work. I think it's something that we really should do.
And that only can come from U5.
I understand.
I can't do that.
I do understand that.
Okay.
But
I would make a motion that we waive the fees.
I'm not going to support that unless I know what the fees are. I got to know how much money we're talking about.
All right. Basically speaking, I'll bring it back as an agenda item.
Perfect. I was going to say that'd be the safe thing for you to do.
Yes. If it's $100, that's one thing.
That's
if it's
right.
$10,000, that's something.
Realize
totally
we're
different.
getting down to the end of our budget year, so that's the reason I'm having to be tight.
So
That's
what
right.
you're saying is the fees, so say if the Historical Society didn't do it, and then but we would still have to put that money from the general fund to the
That's
building
right.
department. So the
rest of the taxpayers in the county pay for that.
So the money's still gonna flow. It's just not whether. Let me back up, okay? Because that is a concern that I do have that if we do waive it. Now, and I do want to say, I'm a board member on the Historical Society.
Very good.
And I'm very supportive of the Historical Society. I'm very supportive of the Heritage Village, but at the same time, as a commissioner, I know I do have to be mindful of the money.
We shouldn't say waive, we should say pay it for them.
We're not
waiving anything.
We're going to get a 10-to-1 return on that money.
I
A
fully agree
10-to-1
with you.
return.
I fully agree with you.
That's a good investment for us to do.
It's a
So I'll bring
10-to-1.
it back as an agenda item.
Understand this. We're getting towards the end of our budget year. A nickel here, a nickel there. Eventually, you're up to some money. We're already, you know, maritime folks asked for, you know, which I agree, the maritime.
All right, we can do this in the new budget.
Well, we can do more stuff in the new budget year, hopefully, than we can.
Okay, well then I'll delay until we can get into
But
our new
understand,
year.
that's an investment that we're gonna be making.
I do understand that, but
But I need to know how much and what to set aside.
Or you could fundraise for them by calling
I could do that.
people.
I could do that, yeah.
And are there other similar type situations that when we do that, we're
Like
gonna
a
be...
church, for example.
You're opening up a lot of stuff. And the only time that we have done it in the past, the only time was right after a storm situation where so many people were flooded. The last time was Hurricane Debbie, and not hurricane, but Tropical Storm Debbie, when we had so many folks on the Choppy River and these other rivers. We pay and waived that, but it ended up
was my item, I think.
That was your item. That was Randy's item. That only ended up being 2 or 3 people took advantage of it.
We didn't waive the fees for the entrance signs to the Tourist Development Council either, right?
We've made the TDC pay for those.
And I'm very supportive of the Historical Society and the Heritage Village.
We have to be very careful because
But there
all
is
the
a
hands
dollar.
start coming out.
There is a dollar amount associated with this, and it's very important to know, have an idea what the dollar amount is.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Okay.
By the way, they called me the other day asking about someone to interview for beekeeping. I guess they're going to do something about beekeepers in Smith Creek that the Historical Society is. I sent him today out of he's
Yeah,
a
okay.
go-to guy.
All right. Okay. That didn't do too good, did it?
That was great.
I still may bring it back as an agenda item because I think it's a good investment. I think it's really good. Any way we can help them to get that up and running will bring us money. So
And I agree in the investment, but we just got to know how much the investment is.
I agree with you. Okay.
Walmart would tell you the same thing on the Thursday just brought in too.
Yeah. My administrator and I don't always agree. I'm not going to have him sit over and smile or whatever. There's a new restaurant in Panacea. The gentleman who has bought the marina in Panacea probably spent $500,000 on the marina, getting it back up to snuff. He has just built a absolutely beautiful facility. He's probably spent another $500,000. He has a tiki Polynesian area that's probably 30 by 70.
That was in the paper, right?
With probably a 60-foot ceiling out of palm. Of course, I feel like the first time we have a storm, the top's going to go out of that thing, but they say it's made to do that. So, anyway, if you haven't been down there to see what probably $1 million investment is in Panacea in your county, creating jobs, investment by private enter, you need to go by and just take a look at that and maybe have some food. Having said that, there's a little town in Aberdeen, Maryland. We're talking about recreation for our children, sports facilities. There's a little town in Aberdeen, Maryland of 15,000 people. They have a Cal Ripken Sports Center in that little town.
Did you pay for it?
No, it was paid for by Nike and the sponsors and so forth. He receives the money off of it, like we're talking about possibly the county receiving them. But anyway, they are booked solid. They're booked solid in that sports complex with tournaments from now on. They have so many people come into that little town, they had to build a Marriott hotel to accommodate just some of the people. And the little town's 15,000. So it's close to Baltimore. It's 30 minutes away from Baltimore and whatever. But you can make money out of a sports facility if it's done right. And
Get Nike to build us one down here, Jerry.
I'll do that. I promise you. But anyway, that's all I've got to say, Richard.
My motion still stands.
Do we have any other discussion? Motion to adjourn? Adjourn.
Thank you. Good sponsor, Jerry.
Have a good evening.